Hi guys, and another one. Now this one, as you will tell from now, I am not a watch expert. I'm just someone that's been into watches for a long time, okay? And is prepared to spend some money on the things that I love, on some quality things. We'll bring this on when we're talking quality. Well, no, that's unfair on the Breitling. This is a real quality piece. It really is. I would say, apart from the clasp, and apart from the fact that it's only a couple of days of power reserve, this is 3. And okay, this has got the white gold in the dial. The actual build quality of this is every bit as good as that. Okay. So this video is about watch buying strategy. Okay. Because what you got to realise with watches, if you buy the wrong watch and you come to sell it, you can't sell it, right? There's watches out there, specifically from my experience, Tags and Longines, specifically those two. I'm sure there are others, maybe Oris. You get where I'm going, right? If you was to buy the Oris, the Longines, the Tag, brand new, their values drop like an absolute stone. Now, so do these, in fairness. So does Breitling. So does Grand Seiko. So does Omega. Okay. But the trick with Breitling, Omega, Grand Seiko, you don't buy the brand new. Okay. You don't buy these watches brand new. Now, I would say that would be the case if you're buying a Longines or an Oris or a Tag. Don't buy them brand new. Okay. The depreciation hit is too great. And if you keep them, particularly, you see, here's a great thing with Breitling. Let's say you're a bit daft and you buy this brand new. And back in the day, this would have been 5-6 grand, something like that. At least in a few years' time, when you do come to get your money out of it, you're still going to get 2 or 3 grand out of it. Okay. If you buy an Oris or a Tag or a Longines, and several years down the line comes, you might be lucky to get 10 or 20%. Maybe I'm being a bit unfair there, but you're not going to get a whole lot of money out of it, right? It's not like, let me give you another example. Let's just say you want to buy a motorbike. You're going to pass your bike test. You want to get into riding bikes. And you buy yourself a cheap little bike, £1,000, £2,000. So you do your test, just to do your training on. After 6 months or 12 months, maybe 2 years, you come to sell that bike, you'll pretty much get all your money out of it, right? That's the position you want to be in. So when I buy this, what is probably a 12, 14-year-old watch, right, I will get my money out of this. Right? I'm not going to lose any money when I come to sell this. And this is the position you want to put yourself in. This is why when you spend 10 grand on a Rolex, you can spend it quite securely because you've always got your 10 grand. Okay. And if you keep hold of this intent for 10 years, you'll probably make money. Okay. This is the great thing with buying these watches. It's not the sole reason to buy a watch that you really like, but it should be a real consideration when you buy a watch. Now, you might think, yeah, if I'm only spending a few £100 on a watch, it doesn't matter. And in that scenario, you're probably right. If you're spending £100 on a G-Shock or a Citizen for work or a cheapy Seiko for work, it doesn't matter. Just spend your £100 and you're done. But as another point I want to make, I would never spend £1,000 on a Tissot, on a brand new Tissot. Even if they were letting me get it for 800 after a discount, I just wouldn't spend that sort of money on a watch. You know, maybe if Longines dropped to say 800, you bought it for 2 grand, and then someone else buys it off you a few years later for 800 on the used. Maybe that's doable as long as it keeps its 800. If they keep on dropping like a stone, don't buy them, you know. I always think Longines and Oris and Tag, they're for the people that They don't know enough about watches. If you're spending £2,000 on a brand new Oris or a Tag, just spend £2,000 on a used Breitling. It's a much better watch. It'll be far more accurate. The build quality will be far better. Yes, it's a 14-year-old watch. It doesn't matter. If you just keep your eye out, be patient, find the right watch with the box and the papers. Okay, this is the better route if you're going to spend £2,000. Okay, completely bypass that Tissot segment if you're buying new. Completely bypass it. Don't buy a brand new Tissot, because it's basically £1,000 down the drain. Nobody really hunts around for a second-hand Tissot, but they will hunt around for a £2,000. I don't know, you wouldn't call this a classic Breitling necessarily, but it's a cracking Breitling. It's an absolute cracking Breitling. 1,500 metres water resistant, built like a tank, wears well on the wrist, good loom, good everyday, solid watch, great bracelet. Look, this is an opinion on my taste of the watch. You don't have to like the watch, but the build quality of the watch surpasses the Longines, the Tag, the Oris. Just don't go there, guys. Buy a few watches, buy a few £100 watches, so you can sort of see what you like, it's one thing it's one thing trying a watch on in the shop, and it's another thing living with it for 6 months. And then you suddenly fall out of love with it. Then you really know that's when your tastes really develop. Okay, when I first got back into watches, I didn't actually like dive watches, these sports dive watches. I didn't like them. I just thought that's what everybody gravitates towards. But then when you buy one, when I bought my first Breitling Super Ocean Chrono, the dial was amazing on that thing. It had got the 3 dials and the concentric circles. I shouldn't be so lazy. I should try and find a picture of it and put it on the screen. I might thumbnail it. I will thumbnail it. If I've still got a picture of it. I'm sure I do. But anyway, it was that Breitling Super Ocean Chrono with the 500 metre water resistance that really got me into the steel sports watches. Because they're such a substantial piece, you can really feel where your money is. With a dress watch, you don't sort of feel the money in it. You just don't. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, if you're spending £10,000 on a Vacheron Constantin Patrimony that's white gold, and it's just so understated and elegant, maybe you can see the money in that. And I mention that watch because that is a little bit of a grail watch for me. But why wouldn't I buy that watch? I would only buy that watch if I had £1 million in the bank, and spending 10 grand meant absolutely nothing. And then I wasn't worried about wanting to get out of it maybe at some point and get my money back. That Patrimony is not the sort of watch that you're going to get out of fast. The great thing with this, you will get out of it quick. My Breitling Super Ocean Chrono, I could have sold that half a dozen times. It was a £2,000 watch, and you don't have much trouble getting out of a Breitling. You really don't. Especially when they're at this value, This is just amazing value, guys. But this is how I do my watch shopping. I always consider how much money I'm going to lose if I try and sell it, even if it's just a percentage. Like I love the Tissot PRX 80. I love them. I think they're a cracking looking watch, but I would never buy one. I would just never buy one. Because I just think that they are. There's no great sort of. There's just nothing special about them. They're good value. They are good value, but you're saying something about yourself. I I can afford to buy these. So what? And these. Why would I buy an £800 watch? I would either, it's just not where I am with watches. And I wouldn't recommend anybody, even if you're starting out, don't completely bypass that category of watch. Buy a G-Shock. Spend £100 on a G-Shock, so you got a robust watch for work. Okay, buy a few G-Shocks. Get into them. There's a lot of cred in being a G-Shock collector. You appreciate pragmatism and build. Even a G-Shock's got good build quality. But keep on saving your money. Save and save and save. Don't spend £1,000 on a Tissot. Spend £2,000 on a Breitling, on a used Breitling. Okay, do your research on the better Breitlings. I've got a video on a Breitling Colt, the 44mm. Now, you do need your wrist actually doesn't need to be as big as you think to wear those Breitling 44mm Colts. It doesn't, because they sit flat and they conform to your wrist really well. Okay, and the dials on them are beautiful. They're maybe my favourite white dial watch. They are beautiful. I'll tell you another really good cheap diver. Get an IWC Aquatimer 2000. If you've got a slightly bigger wrist, you can pick these up now for £2,500. Right, now they have got the ETA movement in them, but I think it's the ETA 2824. I'm not sure, but it's considered to be the best ETA movement. And they are worked on by IWC to give them COSC. I don't think they are certified by COSC, but they're as good as a COSC certified movement. So is the Breitling. It's a COSC certified movement. Even though it's ETA, they ramp it up. They really work on it. So don't be concerned about it being an ETA. And at the end of the day, ETA, they do nothing but make watch movements. They're good movements. Don't be too much of a movement snob. I understand. I do understand it when these are. I do understand the gripe if you're spending £6,000-7,000 on a watch and it's just got an ETA. I get it. I do get it. But just don't do it. Wait until they're a few years old and spend £2 or £3 on them. Then they make sense. Then you will always get your money out of them. Okay. Or wait a few more years and buy one of these. Wait until you're 50 and you got the money. Okay. I had to wait till I was 52 to buy this watch. Okay. It wasn't until I was 52 I could sort of take a chunk out of my savings and it not really hurt the savings. Okay. That's when you buy this watch. You can buy this when you're. Look, I had £2,000 saved when I was 19 or 20. Okay, if you were 19 or 20 and you've got nothing else to do with your couple of grand in the bank, treat yourself to a Breitling. Why not? Why not? If it's your hobby, if it's a passion, why not? Okay. All right. Enough said. Take care.